Today, English is no longer taught only as a foreign language. Around the world, universities increasingly use English to teach entire degrees in engineering, medicine, business, and science. This phenomenon is known as English as a medium of instruction, or EMI. In Russia, EMI has expanded rapidly alongside globalization, international rankings, and academic mobility. But behind the promise of internalization lies a growing controversy. Can students truly learn complex disciplinary knowledges through a second language? Are universities becoming more global or simply more unequal? And when higher education changes language, what else changes? English as a medium of instruction, or EMI, refers to the teaching of academic subjects through English in countries where English is not the first language. Unlike traditional language teaching, EMI focuses not only on learning English itself, but on learning disciplinary content, such as engineering, medicine, economics, or science, through English. The rise of EMI is closely connected to the broader development of English for specific purposes, or ESP, which emerged in the 1960s alongside the growing global demand for English in academic, scientific, and professional contexts. Over time, ESP evolved from simple needs analysis toward broader concerns such as disciplinary discourse, academic communication, and global academic participation. Today, EMI has become one of the most visible manifestations of internalization in higher education worldwide. Since the late 20th century, higher education has become increasingly internationalized. Universities now compete globally for international students, research funding, academic partnerships, and world rankings. As a result, English has become the dominant language of global academic communication. Within ESP and AAP research, this shift has been connected to the growing importance of academic English in a global context. In Europe, the Bologna process further accelerated international academic mobility by encouraging greater compatibility between higher education systems. English medium programs soon became associated with international prestige, institutional competitiveness, and global participation. As Basturkman explains, the rapid spread of English across academic and professional contexts transformed EMI into a global educational phenomenon. Since the early 2000s, Russian higher education has increasingly adopted English medium instruction as part of a broader strategy of internationalization. Universities aim to attract international students, improve their positions in global university rankings, and strengthen their international visibility. EMI also became connected to global research participation. Publishing in English allowed Russian academics to access wider scholarly audiences, increase citation impact, and participate more actively in international collaborations. Another important factor was academic mobility. Influenced by the Bologna process, Russian universities attempted to increase compatibility with European higher education systems through exchange programs, credit transfer systems, and international partnerships. Government initiatives such as Project 5 to 100 and later Priority 2030 further accelerated this process by encouraging universities to strengthen their international profiles and global rankings. One of the major controversies surrounding EMI is teacher preparedness. In many universities, EMI is taught not by English teachers, but by subject specialists such as engineering lecturers, economists, or medical professors. Although these academics may have strong disciplinary knowledge, many researchers argue that they often lack sufficient English proficiency or pedagogical preparation to teach complex academic content effectively through English. This creates an important challenge. EMI requires more than simply knowing English. It also requires the ability to explain disciplinary concepts clearly, scaffold understanding, manage classroom interaction, and support multilingual students in an additional language. Research from multiple EMI contexts shows that universities frequently report shortages of qualified EMI instructors and limited institutional training. In Russia, this issue remains especially significant because structured EMI teacher training programs are still developing. As a result, some lecturers simplify content, they reduce classroom discussion, or rely heavily on memorization-based teaching in order to compensate for linguistic difficulties. This may negatively affect both content learning and student participation. Therefore, critics argue that without sufficient pedagogical and linguistic support, EMI risks becoming more performative than educational, prioritizing international image over actual learning quality. Another major controversy surrounding EMI is student inequality. Researchers argue that students from elite universities, urban schools, or strong English-speaking backgrounds often benefit more from English medium education. Meanwhile, other students may struggle because they are learning both disciplinary content and academic English at the same time. As a result, language barriers can reduce classroom participation, slow comprehension, and negatively affect academic confidence. Critics therefore suggest that EMI may unintentionally widen educational inequality rather than create equal opportunities for all students. In this sense, access to English can become not only a tool for global participation, but also a new form of academic privilege. In Russia, many universities promote EMI as a symbol of globalization, academic prestige, and international competitiveness. However, researchers argue that some EMI programs remain only partially English medium in practice. In some classrooms, students avoid discussion, materials are translated directly from Russian, and classroom interaction becomes more limited. As a result, critics suggest that EMI can sometimes become more symbolic than transformative, creating the appearance of internationalization without fully changing teaching and learning practices. This raises an important question. Is EMI always improving education, or sometimes simply improving institutional image? Beyond practical classroom challenges, EMI also raises deeper questions about language, power, and academic identity. Critics argue that the growing dominance of English in higher education may gradually marginalize national academic traditions and reduce the visibility of local knowledge. In Russia, universities increasingly encourage scholars to publish in English medium journals in order to improve international rankings and research visibility. However, this creates an important tension. If English becomes the main language of academic success, does it also become a gatekeeper, determining whose research is recognized globally and whose voices remain less visible? Researchers in EMI and global English studies suggest that language is never completely neutral. It is also connected to prestige, institutional power, and access to international academic communities. EMI is not only an educational issue, but also a question of linguistic and academic identity. These controversies have important implications for LSP, ASP, and Applied Linguistics practitioners. As universities expand EMI programs, the need for EAP support, disciplinary literacy instruction, genre awareness, and collaboration between language specialists and subject lecturers becomes increasingly important. Researchers such as Basturkman argue that EMI lecturers need more than subject expertise and general English proficiency. They also require pedagogical strategies for scaffolding understanding, supporting multilingual learners, and managing classroom interaction in English medium environments. Overall, EMI in Russia reflects broader global tensions between internationalization and local educational realities. On the one hand, English medium instruction creates important opportunities for global participation, academic mobility, international collaboration, and research visibility. However, this presentation has shown that successful EMI requires far more than simply translating lectures into English. Challenges such as teacher preparedness, student inequality, symbolic internationalization, and the growing dominance of English demonstrate that EMI is also connected to questions of language, power, and academic identity. From an applied linguistics perspective, effective EMI depends on institutional support, disciplinary language awareness, collaboration between language specialists and content lecturers, and sensitivity to local academic contexts. The future of EMI may depend not only on how widely English is used, but on how inclusively and critically multilingual education is implemented.